Hello, it's Valerie of Valerie, and welcome to another video. So today I was standing here at my dresser looking at my TBR. Yes, these 3 piles of books are my entire TBR. There's about 50 books on here, but we'll talk about that later. But I was standing here thinking about all the books I've purchased in the past few years of my life and thinking, why have I done this to myself? What is wrong with me? When will I ever read all of these books? And I thought, rather than just thinking this to myself or telling my friends about my woes, I would tell all you guys about my woes and give you the history of my TBR and walk you through my buying habits and buying history, because actually the way that I have my TBR set up is in chronological order of when I purchased them. So the very bottom book on this pile would be from 2014, and the very top books on the pile are from 2020, just purchased a few weeks ago. So I wanted to walk you through how I was buying things, why I was buying things back in 2014, 2015, and how I'm approaching buying books now in 2020. I bought a lot when I first started watching BookTube and making BookTube videos, and a lot of that is shown here. I'm doing my best to actually read what I buy now. Actually, now in 2020, I've purchased 7 books this year, which feels like a lot for just January, and I've read 5 of them already, and I've read parts of the other 2 that I haven't finished yet. So that's my goal. I just want to cut down on things. I want to be excited about what I buy and what I read. And some of the books that I purchased back in 2015 do not reflect my reading tastes now. So I'm going to walk you through the history of my TBR, maybe get rid of some books. That will be fun, a little on the fly unhaul. So let's do it. I'm going to start with this pile right here. All right, so this pile here contains books from 2014, 2015, and a bit of 2016. So a lot of these books I've had for over 5 years, and I've still not read them. Specifically these 2 down here, these are from 2014, John Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath and Lady Audley's Secret by Mary Elizabeth Braddon. I know I purchased Mary Elizabeth Braddon's book because Ron Litt talked about it years and years ago. Ron Litt has been off of BookTube for so long, yet her influence still plagues me. It still encourages me to buy books. And this was one of those books that I bought but never bothered to read, and I know for a fact that if I didn't have it in this beautiful Penguin English Library edition, I would have gotten rid of it by now. But for some reason, I've kept it. Same with John Steinbeck. I also have another one of his up here. The Pearl and the Grapes of Wrath are both in the Steinbeck editions that I love the most, and I just can't get rid of them because I see it as an investment into my Steinbeck collection, yet I haven't picked them up. They're gonna stay. I'm not getting rid of them because I will read them eventually, but that's why they're still on here. All these other books on here, bar 2 of them, are books from authors that I've read already. So we've got John Wyndham, Christopher Isherwood, Daphne du Maurier, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, Jane Baldwin, Shirley Jackson, Jean Rhys, Jane Austen, Jonathan Coe. A good amount of these authors I've written some of my favorite books of all time, yet why would I rush to read The World in the Evening by Christopher Isherwood when I've already read A Single Man, which is one of my favorite books of all time? Well, I'm going to keep it because it's Christopher Isherwood, but will I rush to it? No. Have I been thinking about it? No. But the one author in this pile that I have not read is Lewis Carroll. I obviously am very much familiar with the story of Alice in Wonderland, and I have a box set of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. And, you know, I was like an Alice in Wonderland emo back in the day. Like, I had a t-shirt and a bright pink Alice in Wonderland tote bag from Hot Topic. I dressed up as Alice in Wonderland once for Halloween. I think for a time my MySpace song was On a Golden Afternoon because I was one of those people. But Alice in Wonderland as a story does not necessarily interest me anymore. I know it, right? I've seen the Disney film. I don't feel like I need to invest so much space on my shelves and in my life for this story, even though, I'll show you, even though this is a beautiful slipcase edition. They're gorgeous books. I love them a lot. They have the original Tenniel illustrations. This story just doesn't intrigue me. I don't know why it would be so difficult to read a 100-page children's novel, but for some reason, it's taken me 5 years to make this decision that I don't want to read it, and I don't care. So these are the first 2 books that I'm just going to get rid of. So say goodbye. Bye. I think the rest of this pile is safe, especially the Jane Austens. Of course, everyone needs all 6 Jane Austen novels. Why wouldn't you have them? Jonathan Coe, what a carve up. This would be next to go if it didn't have one of the most striking covers of all time, and it wasn't a Penguin Essentials edition. This book is pretty massive. It has such tiny font. I don't really know the subject matter. I've read maybe 2 or 3 books by Jonathan Coe, and I thought they were like good and fine, but nothing compelling me to read this, but whatever. I'm keeping it because it's like a cool hot cover, so sorry. I never said I was perfect. Alright, let's move on to the books from 2016, 2017, because there's a lot of them there. Can you tell I had a bit of an obsession in 2017? This is sad. This is really awful, but we'll get to it. I'm starting again from the bottom of the pile once again. We got on the very bottom, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And I don't even need to think about that one that much. This, of course, was later turned into the film Blade Runner, which of course I've seen. And my favorite thing about Blade Runner is not the story, but the look of the film. The Neo-Tokyo aesthetic, the neon, Harrison Ford, rain. That movie is so beautiful. But the story, like, I could take or leave. I actually preferred Blade Runner 2049, starring Ryan Gosling, a lot more. I found that movie more engrossing and had a lot more humanity. So the fact that I've held on to this book for so long based on me seeing a film that I didn't even like that much, why? Why am I keeping this? I'm getting rid of this. I'm gonna give this to my boyfriend. Then we've got Flannery O'Connor. I like Flannery O'Connor's writing. I just haven't gotten to this book yet. More John Wyndham, more Jane Austen. Ooh, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. Another book that was later turned into a well-loved film, which I haven't seen. I'm getting rid of it. I mostly purchased this book and kept it for so long because it's my brother's favorite book, or at least it was at the time I bought it. I don't know if he still likes it. But yeah, I haven't even seen the film of this. I don't even think I'd like the film. I don't even like Jack Nicholson. So, sorry, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but based on the fact that I don't like Jack Nicholson, I'm getting rid of you. And I'm okay with that. Goodbye. Moving up, we've got American Pastoral. This is a book I bought in a charity shop in the UK. I used to go to the UK a lot. I think back in like 2016, 17, Vintage came out with a lot of cool, colorful Philip Roth books, and I've never read anything by him. American Pastoral just sounded cool. I don't even know if I'd like this, but it will stay. David Mitchell, this is number 9 Dream. I have read a book by. I've read Cloud Atlas and I really enjoyed it, and then I was in the UK and I saw this and I thought, oh well, that's an edition we probably don't have back in Canada, I'll buy it. And I've never thought of it since. So, you know, it's a longer book. I feel like Cloud Atlas was just a flash in the pan. I read it at the right place, the right time, and perhaps David Mitchell just isn't the guy for me right now. I have my whole life to get back to David Mitchell. And even if I die tomorrow, I won't be like, oh no, I didn't read David Mitchell's second novel, number 9 Dream. What am I gonna do? It's whatever. I'm gonna give this to my friend Erin. Amy Tan. I have 2 unread Amy Tan books because back at the end of 2016, I read The Joy Luck Club and really loved it. I don't know if I'll love her other books, but I have 2 of them that I've owned for the better part of, you know, the past few years, so whatever. Then we got my Thomas Hardys, we've got some J.D. Salinger, Oscar Wilde, 3 George Eliot books. I have never read anything by George Eliot, but because They're in beautiful buttery Penguin English Library editions. I have them. I see these books in used bookstores and I think I might never see these again. What if I read Middlemarch and want to read all the rest of George Eliot books and then I won't have them in these editions? I need to buy it now because I'm insane. So that's how I think. Also, I made a whole video on collecting Penguin English Library Thomas Hardy's, and I had one left to find at the time, and then I found it, and I never updated you on that, but hey look! I found my last Penguin English Library Thomas Hardy. Good for me. Okay, moving on. There's one other book I want to get rid of. It's not this John Wyndham, it's this book. The Traveling Horn Player by Barbara Trapito. This is a sequel to her delightful book called Brother of the More Famous Jack. I totally forget the events of that book. I'd have to reread it in order to read this, and I feel like I'd rather just reread it without having to read anymore. If I want to revisit this universe, I'm just going to revisit the first book. I don't need a follow-up, I don't think. At least, not anymore. And that's it. That pile took quite a hit. I was quite loose with my book buying and my money spending, obviously, that year. And hopefully this year, 2020, I can undo some of the damage that I did to my TBR back in 2017. Moving on. So now we have 2018, 2019, 2020. This pile, which has 3 years worth of book buying, is the same size as this pile, which is about 1 year of book buying. That's terrible. I hate myself. So let's start at the bottom. More Amy Tan, Hiromi Kawakami, who I've read 2 books by now and didn't love either of them, yet I keep buying her books because they're fine. We got a graphic novel. Why do I buy graphic novels and just not read them? I don't understand. A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. I saw this beautiful Harper Perennial olive edition at the thrift store and thought, yeah, I should probably get that because it's a nice edition. But I read Little Women and it was also in this edition, and it's also a lovely American coming-of-age story about young girls. So now I'm even more excited to read this because Little Women is so great. So of course this has to be great because it has a similar spine, right? Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. Ellison seems really cool. This book seemed fantastic, and I only purchased it last year, so I have lots of time to get to it. Muriel Spark, I've got Ballad of Peckham Rye and Loitering with Intent. I found them in these nice New Directions edition just last year. I love Muriel Spark. Her books are very short, so when I do see these editions out in the wild for cheap, I do pick them up. I still have some of these hoarder mentalities, but I'm working on them. We got Dune. Dune is unlike anything else I've shown here on this pile, and I just picked it up. I'm gonna read it this year. I have to. Timothée Chalamet is going to be in an adaptation of it. Same with Oscar Isaac. So I need to read it now. It's part of my curriculum. I'm gonna do it. On top of that, I have The Witches by Stacy Schiff. I don't read a lot of nonfiction. I've been to Salem. I went to the Salem Witch Trial Museum with the weird animatronic people, and I think I know the gist of the story. I've read The Crucible, even though that book just absolutely butchered what really went down. I read some Goodreads reviews of this, and it sounded incredibly dry and boring, so I think I'm gonna get rid of it. If I really want to learn a bit more about the Salem Witch Trials, I'll either go back or watch a documentary, because I think that's just how I prefer to take in nonfiction. And then the rest of these I bought pretty recently. The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood, because I always need at least one Maggie book sitting on my TBR. Wuthering Heights, technically I've read, but I read it when I was like 11, so I didn't understand it, so I'm excited to reread that this year. And then I've got some Roald Dahl short story collections. I purchased these just a few weeks ago. I've already read a story from each, so these are the only 2 books that I bought this year of the 7 that I haven't read. That's incredible. I feel so good about that. These are my most recent purchases, and I'd say these are the books that I'm most excited to get to. Which should I read first? And please suggest books from 2014 to 2017 as well. I really need to get on top of that, so please help me. So that was my lovely TBR as much of a burden as it is. And these are the books that will be leaving my TBR today. Let's pour one out for them. I know as soon as they leave my house and my life, I will likely never think about them again, but I thank them for their time that they spent with me, and I apologize. So say goodbye. So thank you for watching. I hope that was somewhat entertaining to watch and listen to. I spend a lot of time thinking over my TBR, and I meticulously write down every single book that I purchase in a year, and at the beginning of every year I write down the books that are already on my shelves unread. I spend a lot of time and effort just thinking about these books. I would love to have maybe 5 or 10 books tops on my TBR, but that's likely not going to happen unless I read all of these or get rid of them somehow. It's not going to happen, and it's been a struggle for the past half decade when I decided to buy 87 books in 2015. Why did I do that? I'm still struggling with that. I'm still working my way back to a somewhat manageable level, but now at least I'm under 50. We'll see what my TBR looks like this time next year. I hope it's a lot less. I really don't intend to stockpile like I have been doing for the past few years. So on to bigger and better things. I think that concludes this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a good one. Don't buy too many books that you can't read. Okay, bye. Thank you.